Hi, my name is Judy and I'm the City Stitcher and welcome to my Flosstube channel. Today is Sunday, July the 2nd. Yes, we are into the month of July. I'm calling it halfway through the year. Can you believe it? We are halfway through 2023. Yeah, surprising. It's been an interesting day weather-wise where I live here in Alberta, Canada. You know, we did have some sun this morning and then it got cloudy in the early afternoon, and by the time I was getting everything ready to record my Flosstube, it got, really rainy, which means not a good time to be recording. And then of course I got completely distracted. So in case you can't tell from the lighting situation that I have, I'm recording this very late on Sunday, July the 2nd. Yeah, so who knows when this is going to get up. You'll know better than I do because you'll be watching it. You'll know exactly when it got up. Anyway, we're recording anyway because I need to get it done. And anyway, there we go. As you can tell from the decor, so I put my little, Canada thingy. I'm trying to sit here all centered, it looks like I've got the top of the maple leaf is the crown on top of my head. Okay, that's what I'm telling myself, just go with it. And then I have my, I spent a lovely $3.50 at Michael's getting, a decoration. And yes, for certain individuals, I know that all of this clashes. You'll just have to be okay with it this week, including my red t-shirt, which you can't necessarily see what it says. It is a red t-shirt and it says in white lettering, glorious and free. It's my, one of my Canada Day t-shirts. I know, people are going, what do you mean one of yours? It's because I have two. I have this one that says glorious and free, and I have one that is white that has red maple leaves on it. Anyway, okay, and I think because it's late, I need to, thank heavens I have a beverage. Okay, hopefully that will help. Anyway, even though it is July the 2nd, I'm going to say Happy Canada Day to all of my Canadian viewers. I hope you had a great celebration yesterday. I hope everybody was safe. It gets always concerning on these types of occasions. Certainly with the wildfire situation in Canada, if there was a ban on fireworks or, fire pits or any of that kind of stuff, I'm sure all of you paid attention to all of that. So yeah, where I live, they weren't doing fireworks. They were going to do a light show. I don't know where it was going to be, because you have to wait till it gets dark to do these things. And because of where I live north of the 49th parallel, it doesn't get late until, 10:30 at night. And sometimes I just go, I'm not really up to going out to go seeing whatever that is. There have been a couple of years where they've done, where they would say even larger than normal fireworks displays for Canada Day. And I know there was one year, so I live on a hill. And so when they do it like that at a certain location, I can actually just walk a couple of blocks and I can see it from where we are on the hill. They didn't do that this year, so anyway. Yes, so happy Canada Day to all of my Canadian viewers, or anyone from any other country that is celebrating in, just to celebrate. That's great too. And in advance of July the 4th, I think you just call it Happy July the 4th. I'm like, wait a minute, it's not. Yeah, Happy 4th of July to all of my American viewers. Same goes to you. Let's be safe. And I hope you enjoy your celebrations or your get-togethers or whatever it is that you're doing. This is a channel about cross stitching and the stitching that I've done over the past week, and in some cases the crocheting that I've done. And hopefully this week, unlike last week, I will remember to actually do the crocheting segment of the video. I didn't get it done last week, quite frankly, because I was losing all of my lighting, and it got to the point where I felt like I was recording in the dark. I was actually very, very concerned about what it was going to look like. So fortunately, the camera did a really good job of keeping the light settings automatically adjusted to what they should be for what I was doing. So that was great. But yes, I think you could probably tell as I got to the end, I was like going, I have to wrap this up. I have to wrap this up. So I wrapped it all up, got to the end and went, huh, missed a segment. Oops. Anyway, it's not life altering. It'll be just fine having it part of this week. So hopefully I will not forget the bag that is sitting here on the floor beside me. Anyway, cross stitching is here on the table. Crocheting is in the bag on the floor. That's more than you ever needed to know, I know. So if you are a new viewer, thanks for stopping by. And as always, many, many thanks to those of you who come back and check up on my, and keep up with my cross-stitching journeys. It's been an interesting week. We'll talk about that. But first, let's talk a little bit about some of the comments coming in from last week's video. Thank you to those of you who left comments on how much you appreciated the in-depth discussion about all of the thoughts that have occurred to me while I was changing the Canadian Patriotic Sampler. And it was interesting as I was watching it back. I was thinking to myself about one of the conferences I went to, one of the sessions I attended was talking about decision fatigue and how that plays into how companies make decisions. And I was thinking about it in the context of people making decisions for cross-stitch. We live in a complicated world, and life can be really complicated. And decision fatigue is a real thing. And I totally get that there are a lot of people who go, the last thing I want to do when I get to doing my hobby, which is supposed to be providing me with a mental health break, stress relief, change of pace, take my mind off of whatever's going on. The last thing I want to do is spend a lot of time trying to redesign, recolor, change all the things. Like it takes too much energy, which I totally get. A huge portion of my career has been spent in roles where it's my job to come up with all of the options. What are all the things we could do? You know, are we prepared to handle if 27 circumstances occur, and what do we do if, and is there a way to handle it? And what about this? And anyway, so for me, I think I have a higher tolerance level because I've spent so much of my working career doing all of that. What if we changed this? What if we did that? What if it, anyway. So for me, making changes is not tiring. Takes work, takes effort, takes time, for sure. But I don't find it, well, other than when you can't come up with the right solution and you can't come up with the right color combination and you're having to spend more time, and it just takes time, but as long as you're happy with the results. But I totally get that for a lot of people, making changes, it's just, that's one step too far. And that's okay too. You know, a lot of the things that I change when I'm making changes is simply because my color palette is, the color palettes that I enjoy are not the same as a lot of other people. So all those lovely people who like earth tones, there's lots of designs out there that are in that color palette. You don't need to make any changes whatsoever. That's great. That's not me. And so I have to make changes so it works for my color palette. And it's my piece, and the person who has to like it the best is me. So, okay, so Angie, I'm just going to talk about Angie because she had a really great comment, and I laughed out loud when I read it because she said, suddenly she has discovered that she knows better than the designer about colors for designs that she's been working on. And I will first say, it's not that you know better. because certainly talking Jeannette Douglas, there's no way I would ever say that I know better than Jeannette Douglas. That's not right. But you are making changes so that it better suits you as an individual, and we're all individuals. Anyway, continuing on with Angie, she found herself working on this one particular piece, and she was muttering to herself, and then out of her mouth comes the magic line, "You've been watching too much City Stitcher." Now, I laughed. I thought it was a great line, but the answer is I'm actually really glad that you're looking at these pieces and going, you know, the design is fantastic. I just need to tweak it to make it fit into my color palette or, you know, whatever. You know, I think that's great. And I'm really glad that you've watched me long enough that that's now seeping into your thought process, going, is that exactly the way that I want it? I think, thank you. I took that as a really great compliment. So thank you, Angie. And then Miss Agatha, you're very, very welcome about hearing my thoughts on framing options. It's just thoughts and opinions. It's always great to get opinions, so it'll be very interesting when you get to that point of seeing what you end up actually doing. Please let us know what you end up doing, because that will be really interesting. And then also thank you to those of you who commented that you too are not fans of heart motifs. And I also like the ones who also said, I don't know why. We don't know why, but they're just, Anyway, I thought that I was actually really glad to know that it's not just me, because certainly in most of the stitchers I talk to, they're kind of like, sorry, what's the problem with a heart motif? And then you go like, well, that's as descriptive as it gets. So it's nice to know that I am not the only member of the not uberly fond of heart motifs. All right, with that, let's get into some stitching and my stitching week. It'll be an interesting show and tell. Okay, focus on the tell, but anyway. All right, so last Sunday, of course, was June the 25th. Which meant that once I got my Flosstube recorded, I was working on my the project that I work on the 25th of every month, which is Little Bits of Christmas by the Drawn Thread. I'm having that moment going, can I get the right light setting here? I think so. Let's actually take it down. I feel like I'm getting a lot of glare off of there. Anyway, yeah, so Little Bits of Christmas by the Drawn Thread. I'm doing my own variation of this because I am making it sort of similar to this, only more. So instead of doing 9 of the motifs that are available in this design, I am using 12. I just had a moment, like, where is that going? So I did okay. And for those of you who are waiting to see what the next motif is that I finally made a final decision on, the answer is, it was the cardinal. So going over here. So I'm still on track for this particular project, which is I'm doing 1 block a month on the 25th. With the hopes that I might be able to turn it into a fully finished object before we hit Christmas Day of this year. I know, bold, very bold, because of course the last block won't get done until November 25th, and that, like, I mean, that only gives me a little bit of time to actually pull it together. So anyway, it's a very bold goal. We'll see how we do. The stitching part is coming along just fine. So yeah, so there we go. There is, place the cardinal up here next to the Santa. So yes, again, if you look closely at this, clearly I'm adjusting things. But That's certainly not new for this channel. Anyway, so there it is coming along. And for anybody who is coming to the Stitching at the Library in July, yeah, we'll be talking about this again because, you know, I have to make another decision and really, I have a new thought. So we'll talk about that when we do Stitching at the Library, which fortunately is occurring on July 22nd. So I'll have time to get some opinions before I hit stitching day for this. But there is my little bits of Christmas, which is, I'm very pleased with how that one's coming along. All right, so then I worked on my ABC project that I'm currently working on, which is Winter ABCs by Little House Needleworks. Oh yeah, let's see. Going back, Little Bits of Christmas is being stitched on, I think it's 32 count Serene Lugana by Picture This Plus. If it isn't 32, it's 28, but I'm pretty sure it's 32 count. When in doubt, check the notes section below. I'll have all the details for the projects that I'm working on in the notes below. All right. Back to Winter ABCs. I'm stitching this on a 28 count Springfield Sage Lugana using the called for colors for the most part. So how did I do? So I did okay. So I got these two little individual red stitches in there. And the funny thing is, as soon as I sat down to work on this piece, I put the two stitches in and went, seriously, what was the problem the last time you were working on this that you couldn't get them in? But I discovered when I start off a stitching session doing the random one-off things that irritate me, it's not a problem. If I'm trying to do them when I'm at the tail end of a stitching session, that's when it's a problem. So this part down here is not entirely complete. I have 3 or 4 stitches left to go, but they're random. I want to say it's 4 stitches in 2 different colors, which, you know, annoys me. And then I have to back stitch a branch, and I didn't want to back stitch the branch till I got the stitches in there. But there is my... So yes, I am 4 stitches in a branch short of being fully complete up to P, which I feel is very positive. I want to say that I looked at my percentage completion when I finished stitching on this. I want to say I'm at 60% now. So this is moving along very, very well. Now, the complication is I'm supposed to be stitching on this tonight, and it's very late. It's very late when I'm recording this. So I don't know what I'm going to get accomplished, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, we'll see. Yeah, check back next week, see what I end up accomplishing. But yes, I think it's coming along fabulously well. Like I say, I think I've said this every time I've shown this. I think this is the perfect fabric choice for this particular version of winter ABCs. So yeah, happy with that one. So happy with Little Bits of Christmas. Happy with Winter ABCs. Then I worked on my Canadian Patriotic Sampler by Jeannette Douglas. So this is the design as designed by Jeannette, which, as we talked about last week, I made a lot of changes on this one. And I was really hoping I was going to have it finished for this week, and I really don't. And we're going to talk about that in just... Anyway, let me show you where I got to. All right. So last week when we were talking, actually I really feel like, how do I get this all in? Let's see if I can't get this as a screen grab, because I said the theme is feeling patriotic. Yes, there we go. Okay, so the other thing, the design element that is unique to my version of this is, and really it's just my initials, and I stitched in the 23, so it's got to get finished this year. Anyway, we'll talk about that in plans, what my plans are. So I've already put the 23 in, so now it has to get finished one way or another. This, anyway, so I stitched all of this and got all the way over to here when I realized I didn't start it in the right spot. It's really lovely. Oh, that's not true. I'm doing it reverse. I got all the way over to here before I realized I started it in the wrong spot. It's really great when you chart your redesign and you reach a spot where you just assume you know what you charted, which is not what you charted. I had to take it all out. I started to unstitch it, and then I just was so annoyed with it that I actually frogged it, which meant I just cut all the silks and took them all off. I was done with them. Then it had to go into a little bit of a timeout because I was really, really annoyed with it. So I got some quality crocheting in while I was giving it a timeout. Then I came back and was working on it again. It was okay. And then at some point I stopped to do something, and I really had come in sort of, as you can tell, I'm doing like the two reds. I haven't filled in the black yet. So I'm going to get the Simply Strawberry and the Poinsettia sections of the plaid all stitched, and then I'll go in and do the black. Or that's what I'm telling myself. And at some point I wanted to go back and reread the instructions for these maple leaves in the center. And then, so I looked out the instructions for that. And so then I decided I would read the whole instruction and read the whole instruction and went, I'm sorry, what? Sorry, what was I supposed to do? So in my head, I had this big talk to remind anybody who has this in their stash or is wanting to stitch this design some cautionary tales. Now it's turned into an uberly cautionary tale. Because, you know, I stitched the top part, clearly did not make a clear mental note, and started stitching the bottom and didn't read the instructions. There's all these spots that when I read it in the bottom half, I just went, it's a quarter stitch. Totally fine. So the first instruction was going to be, don't forget those quarter stitches. It's easier to catch them on the first go around than having to go back in and redo them. The problem is that they're not supposed to be quarter stitches. They're supposed to be 1/1 full crosses. So now I effectively have half of what I'm supposed to be doing in all of these spots. So I've come up with a mental plan on how to rectify things to sort of get them back to being full crosses. I'm really annoyed with myself about this. So I can do them correctly on the bottom part the first time. The fact that, you know, I stitched all of this and ripped it all out and restitched it and still didn't read the instructions is... I'm very annoyed with myself. Yeah, it's totally my fault. I didn't read the instructions. Jeannette has a lovely set of instructions in her design. I wasn't paying any attention. Anyway, those quarter stitches that look like quarter stitches on the chart are supposed to be 1/1 full crosses. And she does talk about why they're not 3/4 stitches. And the funny thing is I looked at it and I went to myself, there's no way those are 3/4. There's no way I did 3/4 stitches. I didn't even bother looking up close, because if I'd even looked up close at what these were, I would have seen that they were not just quarter stitches. No. Assumed, which meant anywho. But it's, anyway, I was like, it's not done yet. It's not done. I didn't start the chart that I wanted to start in June, which I'm also annoyed about, because I really wanted to get it started. So I'm trying to decide what my solution to that problem is going to be. Check back later. Haven't made a final decision on that one, but I'm still trying to figure out a way. I think I want to get it started this year. I know it's of no use to you that I won't tell you what it is, but it's a big stitch. I did spend all the time. I got it into Markup RxP. It's all set up, including wait for it. the redesign on that one too. I made some changes on that one too. If I get it started, when we get to the part where I've redesigned it, we'll talk about it. Which I think if I started it, I think we'd end up needing to talk about it. But yes, I made changes in that one too. Got them all. They're all in Markup RxP. All the changes. Made sure that it all looks correct at the end of the day. So that was positive. And I haven't started it. Anyway. So that was also frustrating this week, is that I didn't get that my Canadian Patriotic Sampler finished, and stitching on it was frustrating because I did it wrong. And there wasn't enough time to start my other one. Anyway, there's like 14,000 stitches in that one, so anyway. So let's talk about Saturday. Saturday, I just went, let's time out from everything. It's a new month, July the 1st. Let's do some July the 1st things. So last week when I was recording, I also realized I had forgotten that I had told myself that on Saturdays I was going to work on Summer Notes by Shepherd's Bush, because we're going to do it a little bit of it at a time and get that thing finished. But of course, I forgot to do that last week. So this Saturday, it's the first thing I started off when I was stitching. So this is Summer Notes by Shepherd's Bush. And I am stitching this on a 32 count ice blue Lugana. I'm pretty sure it's ice blue. And so the goal when I pull this out is I'm just going to do a little bit. Just a little bit, where you have no grandiose, glorious ideals of anything. So, what did I get done? I know, I put yellow in. After all that discussion, what did I do on this one? I put the yellow in. So I put in, these are going to be bee-skips. Now they need some back stitching for them to look like better bee-skips. And then there's these two individual yellow stitches, which are, once the back stitching goes around them, are supposed to look like bees. And I did the sun, and I did the word sunshine. Now, I changed the decision. So the chart did sunshine in like the pinky color. And I went, but pinky is not very sunshiny. So I, of course, did it in yellow, which makes sense to me, but I'm not sure it actually looks very good on, given the pale background. I think it's actually hard to read. I think it's actually easier to see in the camera than it is in real life. So I may end up taking this out and stitching it in a different color, but I haven't come to any decisions on that just yet. And so, so I got a chunk of the yellow done. Not surprisingly, there's some yellow that are like in the centers of these random flowers, and the flowers aren't done, so there's no way it would turn into like one stitch in the center of nothing, so that wasn't going to happen. So there is more yellow left to be done in this piece, but I at least sat there and told myself, you've made some progress. Doesn't need to be like huge, you know, monolithic progress. And since I was getting frustrating as it was kind of, anyway, it was stitching on this is a little frustrating to me at the moment. So we're just going to do it in little chunks and see if I can't get it finished. The other thing that it reminded me of when I was hauling it out is there is a flagpole here that has an American flag. Now this is a button from Just Another Button Company, and not surprisingly, I don't want to put the American flag on mine. I want to put a Canadian flag. I think I have checked out all the things on Just Another Button Company. I think there is only one option that will actually fit into that slot. So I need to check to see if somebody's got that button so I can see if it will work or not. So as you can see, I have not stitched the flagpole, and I'm not going to stitch the flagpole until I know whether or not that's going to work or not, because otherwise I might just put in some random, you know, pretend that there's like trees back here. Who knows what I'm going to do? I might just leave, who knows what I'm going to do. Step one, I need to check to see if anybody's got the Jabco button, so I can make that final assessment. So a little bit of progress on this. So I, you know, finished up the big sun and the word sunshine. I went, that's enough for today. We can put that away. And then, of course, because it was July the 1st, that is beginning of a new month, time to work on my new monthly Quaker. Now, I have this one as an electronic chart. So this is what it's going to look like. This is July Quaker by From the Heart Needle Art by Wendy. And it's red, white, it's red and two blues, a light blue and a navy blue, which is fairly Americana. I don't necessarily dislike it. I am having a debate about whether I'm actually going to use the navy blue or whether I'm going to adjust that to something else. Check back next week and see if I come up with an answer on that one. But I did get it started, and then of course looked at it in Markup RxP and went, oh, what? I'm stitching these. I'm stitching the entire series. I was going to say I am keeping up. That's not true. I'm technically behind. I did not finish April. So of the 6 that I'm supposed to have finished by now, I have 5 finished. April has been started, but April has not been finished. So this is my July Quaker. I'm stitching this on 40 count white Verdal. I'm stitching all of them on 40 count white Verdal. So far, I'm using the called for colors. So why did I cringe when I looked at it in Markup RxP? So I was looking at the info for fortunately, it was in Markup RxP. It was all set up, ready to go. Love when I look ahead and everything's ready to go. And man, there's almost 3,000 stitches in this thing. This is the biggest stitch count of all the monthly Quakers to date. I was really hoping for it not to be more than 2,500, and it really is. Anyway, so I got a decent start on it. This is about 400 stitches so far. There's a lot left to go. Anyway, we'll see how we do. It started, which is positive. All right. So those are all of the stitching that I did this week. So a decent number of actual projects. Like I say, I'm most annoyed about the fact that I did not get the Canadian Patriotic Sampler finished. we'll be talking about it again in a bit. All right, with that, let's get into stashquisitions. Certainly for those of you who enjoy a good stashquisition section. We're actually going to start off with Stitchy Kindness. Was catching up with a friend of mine this week, and she just said, hey, by the way, do you have, would you be interested in this fabric? I'm not going to use it. And I went, yes. So this is 30 count blue jean linen by Weeks Dye Works. It's a fat quarter. So, yeah. So I went, yes. I know linen is not necessarily my favorite, and I know there are lots of people who don't necessarily like Weeks Dye Works linen if it's not on a Zweigart base. For my purposes, the answer was it's blue. We'll put it into the stash. I have no clear plans for how this is going to get used, but since somebody's saying like, hey, do you want it? I was like, yes, I will take that linen. So it will go into the linen stash. We'll see how it ends up getting used at some point in the future. Okay, so there's that. Then, okay, while I was out at some point looking at I was going to say HomeSense. Where did I get this from? I was going to say it's either Winners or HomeSense. It was HomeSense. So I have been looking for a house-shaped frame. Home is my happy place. Home is my happy place. But I didn't get it for the saying. I got it because I wanted it for the house shape. And surprisingly, I've had a great amount of difficulty finding one. It seems to me that anybody in the US can go to a Hobby Lobby and find a house-shaped frame. That's not the case at Michael's. Anyway, it seemed to be a lot hard. I even checked on Amazon. I was having a really hard time. Anyway, so I stumbled across this and went, there was only the one, and I went, that's it, you're coming home. Full stop. End of story. I didn't know if it was the right size for what I was contemplating, but it is the only house-shaped frame that I have seen. So it came home. And why was I wanting this? Well, one of the upside, it's actually fairly thick. So the part that I like is that it will be able to just sit all by its very self, which I appreciate. But the reason why I was looking for this is I was contemplating finishing all of my, finishing. Yeah, you heard me say that word. Finishing all of my Country Cottage Needlework monthly ones into this frame, because of course they're all houses, different shapes, different placements, different colors, but all houses. And I also like this one that it's white because there's so much white used in these designs. There's white in all of them. And then I was just going to use the Priscilla and Chelsea version of things where you just do the magnet on the back and the washer on the stretched piece, and then just pull them out and swap them. So that is my contemplation for this. Now, I was also doing this and went, nutty nuts. So I stitched these on a 32 count Icelandic blue linen from Witchelt. And the Witchelt linens do tend to be stiffer than other linens, which when I was stitching on them, I didn't have any problem. I don't stitch in hand, so it's not like it impacted me in any of those ways. I was just like, whatever. Where it is going to have an impact is when I was noticing how it was to fold this up into my nice little square. And I went, if I'd been smart. So one of the things you can do, certainly for solid colors from Witchelt, is that they are color fast. And really, what my understanding is that one of the things that's really contributing to the stiffness is the sizing that's in the fabric. And so if you just wash it, you can actually get a decent chunk of that sizing out so it's not quite so stiff. So if I'd been smart, I would have washed the linen before I started working on it to take some of that sizing out, but I didn't do that. And now I've stitched on most of them with over-dyed cotton floss, which are not necessarily color fast. So when it comes to turning this into a fully finished object, I will have a little bit of the fighting the stiffness of the fabric. Doesn't that sound like fun? I'm having a moment. When we, the royal we, me, myself, any accomplices I choose to rope into this escapade. It'll be interesting to see. I'm kind of going, I wonder if steaming will help. Anyway, check back later. We'll see how it goes. We might start and we'll see if it ends up being, well, I did one and that was the end of that. Anyway, check back later. I don't know when I'm going to start working on these. It's not anytime soon, but at least I have a contemplation, and I know Cheryl from Happy Handcraft Studio is really great about, and boom, let's turn it into a fully finished object. We all know I go a lot slower. At least I have a concept. Now I have, you know, the key component to executing on the concept. So we're a healthy step closer to executing the plan. I don't know exactly when that's going to be, but, you know, we're closer. And then I had a trip out to Traditional Stitches. Okay, and specifically, so I went to Traditional Stitches on the 17th of June. So the Saturday before the Stitch and Stash retreat that was in Edmonton at the end of June. Because I had watched the Traditional Stitches Flosstube, and she had brought in a bunch of things that she was taking to Stitch and Stash. But she said she had them on the website so you could order them. And so this was before she headed up to Edmonton. So I put in my order for this item, and then I phoned into the shop and said, because they didn't have pictures of the things, and I said, I talked to someone there who knows me really well and said, is there something there that's going to be me? And the answer was really like, you need to come out and look. So I made sure that I hustled and got out there. And so I went and picked this up. So this is a plate. Where did that piece of paper go? Crafty Corey. Anyway, so this is I'm calling it a placemat to take to a stitching retreat. So it's got the snap, which I appreciate. I like that, you know, for many of them you can just fold them over, and that's great too. I like the snap just in case I'm actually accidentally leaving something in here. And really what it is to sort of set this out to where you're working, you know. It's got the sort of felty inside so that you can put your floss on it and not have it fly away on you, and you'll be able to see all of your colors. It has a magnet that's sewn into here that you can either just put your needle minder on top of, or you can use it as its own little bit of a needle minder. It has a built-in cork coaster, and this ring, now the assumption is that, the assumption is that you're going to do like a ring of threads to attach to that, which is not necessarily true. It could be a pair of scissors, right? Just something that you need to keep contained and not running around on your thing. So there were a limited number of these. They didn't have pictures, so I went out and got myself one. So this is the one that I ended up choosing. And then while I was there, because they knew I was coming, I had some back-ordered items which had come in, which was great. So I got a skein of Dinky Dyes Seagrass. I had that moment where I was going, ooh, I'm going to need something white to show things against. I'm wearing white, so there you go. So Dinky Dyes Seagrass, that is for a known project. And I got 2 skeins of Mermaid, which is also for a known project. You're going to be surprised at this. But anyway, so I got those. Yeah. So yeah, that's for a known project. And which is in the 5-year plan. And then I picked up this fuzzy stuff in FZ18 from Rainbow Gallery. This is also for a specific project, which is not in the 5-year plan. But it's a much older chart. It's now out of print. I've been doing a little bit of looking at charts that I have in my stash that are old, like quite a bit old, and looking at to see if there are any specialty fibers in there that may be at risk of going out. And it's not that I necessarily think that this was going to be discontinued, but I just went, it's the only, that's not true. I think there is, I think for the same chart, there's a Rainbow Gallery thread that has been discontinued that I can't get anymore. So that's just like, make sure. I need to come up with a substitute for the other one, but that'll be fine. I think I did some research online and came up with what I think the replacement is supposed to be. And then while I was there, same thing, while I was watching the traditional stitches, they were talking about linens that they had in the shop. So this is a Access Commodities Legacy Linen 38 count in Druid Blue. So I got a fat quarter of that. Because, you know, me and a blue background. So do I have any specific ideas for how this is going to get used? No. But they had it in stock in the shop, and conveniently they had a fat quarter already cut in the when you go to the shop, they've already got some fabric that's been pre-cut into, you know, whether it's a fat 1/8 or a fat quarter, and in some cases fat halves. So they already had this cut as a fat quarter, so I didn't even need to ask anybody to cut me anything, so that was great. So I added that into the stash. And that is all the stash acquisitions I have this week. Don't worry, there will be stash acquisition next week. All right, plans. So I had a very specific plan for what I was going to do in July and what it was going to look like and what I was going to get accomplished, and I'm changing that. So all of the things in my head that I already told myself that I want to accomplish in July, I want to accomplish those things too. So technically, in terms of what gets accomplished, is staying the same. Here's the catch. I'm adding the Canadian Patriotic Sampler into July. I have to finish it. I have to get it finished. I must. If I put this thing away, I'm going to forget about the whole over one, blah, blah. I have to get that plaid section done. And the poinsettias. It's not poinsettias. I'm using poinsettias, one of the colors in the plaid. I need to get the maple leaves in the center stitch. I need to get it finished. Must. So I'm delaying. I had besides the monthly Quaker, I had a July new start, which I was planning on working on Monday. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put it off and try to stitch like the Dickens and get my Canadian Patriotic Sampler finished. Finished. I need to get that thing finished before I move on. And then, of course, now I'm also adjusting my plans for what I'm stitching and when I'm stitching it, given that the July Quaker is almost 3,000 stitches. So I need to get the Canadian Patriotic Sampler finished. I need to get some progress this week done on my July Quaker. And depending on how I'm feeling about that, in my head I have a specific goal. That if I reach that goal, then I can start my July new start. It doesn't mean the July Quaker needs to be finished, but if I reach a certain milestone for the July Quaker, then I can start my July start. Now, it's a terrible week for this to be occurring because I also have this week is the 6th of July. Big surprise! Somewhere between the 2nd of July and the 9th of July comes the 6th of July. And of course, on the 6th of July is when I work on one of my royalty-related pieces, which in this case is going to be working on my piece that I started for the coronation of King Charles III. So I have to work on that this week. So filming really, really late. Need to work on winter ABCs. Need to work on my coronation piece on the 6th. And I'm carrying forward Canadian Patriotic Sampler. And I need... We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I really want to get my July new start started. I really want to get it started. It's got some very scary things in it. We'll talk about that when we get there. I think this is the one that has some scary things in it. But anyway, so check back next week, see if I have a new start. Hope there, well, one way or another, there will be a finish next week. Whether or not I reach all of my goals is another whole thing to be. Who knows how that's going to work out. All right. Announcements. Announcements, the stitching at the library, if you're in the greater Calgary area, if you're traveling through on vacation for whatever reason, if you happen to be in town, you're always more than welcome to join us. We will be stitching at the Signal Hill Library from 1 to 4 on Saturday, July the 22nd. Those details are in the notes below along with the specific address so that you can find the Signal Hill Library. If you are new to stitching at the library, all you need to do is come in through the main doors of the library and turn to your right, and just past the photocopiers there's a room, there's a glass sliding door, there will be stitchers in there. Happy to see you and connect with you. So if you're in the greater Calgary area and you want to come, you are more than welcome to just show up. Yeah, so Saturday, July the 22nd from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. All right. And then, so crocheting. Time to do some crocheting. See, I didn't forget this week. It's because I have all the lights set up. I'm not feeling like I'm recording in the dark. So the only thing that I have worked on this week, so I still have not worked on my poncho, because, you know, if you can procrastinate, you can procrastinate. So I have worked more on my speckled moss stitch blanket, which is this. Now, see, it's making good progress. See? So that's quite a bit more than the last time you saw it. Now, it's not that I'm going to be adding anything, whoops. It's not that I'm going to be adding anything new from a pattern, because clearly it's a repetitive pattern, and for one of you out there, you know exactly what you should be saying in your head. I really enjoy a good repetitive Afghan pattern. Anyway, so there you go. Making good progress. I was looking at it and I think I'm probably about 30% of the length that I need. as we've talked about. It's all folded up, so it's got decent width. It's the length that we're working on, and I am wanting it to be a fairly long Afghan. But very, 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 very pleased with this. Really enjoy crocheting this. This pattern technically is by, I want to say, Daisy Farm Crafts. The link to the Afghan will be in the notes section if you're wanting it. I am, wait for it, I am using the called for yarn. So apparently there is a craft where I will follow instructions. So I'm following the pattern as it's written, which is not exactly that hard. And I'm using the called for yarn and the called for yarn colors. I've got the trifecta. Who knew I was capable? Anyway, but yes, very, very pleased with how this is coming along. Like I say, while Canadian Patriotic Sampler was in timeout, this got some attention. Yeah, very pleased. Yeah, I'm really enjoying this. I said it before, I'm going to say it again. Not only have I worked on this one, I absolutely am planning on crocheting this blanket again. I know, I haven't finished the first one, and I'm already saying I'm going to be crocheting this blanket again, just with not these teals. I want to do it. I want to do another one. This is actually, this is for my guest bedroom. Yeah, that's the color palette of the guest bedroom. I want one for the family room. So, and I believe that this is ball 4 of the white. This sad little, you know, we're coming to the end of this one. This one will be gone this week, no problem. So I am keeping track of how many balls that I need to do this Afghan, and you know, particularly for this size of Afghan, because that's about the size of the Afghan that I'll want for the family room. I'm debating whether I need to make it a little bit wider, but I'm going to wait till I have the whole thing done before I make a final decision on that. Now, I haven't made a final decision, but the white is going to be used again. So I stash quisitions for crocheting. Not that I have all of them here, but, and it's not specifically this one, but yes, so the yarn that's being used is Patton's Canadiana. This is clearly the white. I did find this on sale online at a Canadian online store, 35% off, which when you need a larger quantity of balls of yarn, that was helpful. So I ended up buying quite a bit because it was on sale. Yes, you can get some yarns here, you know, you can get this at this particular brand at Michael's, and yes, you can sometimes get it for 40% off and, you know, all that kind of stuff, but not when you're going in. I need, like, you know, quite a bit to do a large Afghan. So, anyway, when you look at the pattern for the speckled moss stitch Afghan, the dimensions that are on the pattern, which is, it's a free pattern to download, they're for what I would call a baby blanket. So I have upsized, you know, but again, it's not that hard to upsize that this particular design. So yes, so I've already purchased the white for the next one. I don't know that it will exactly be the next Afghan I start, because I'm only allowed to have 2 projects on the go for crocheting. One is a poncho or a shawl or a wrap, and the other one is an Afghan, lapghan, take your pick. Those are the two categories. You're only allowed to have one of each going at any given moment. And since I still haven't finished the weaving in my plaid poncho, I can't start the poncho I really want to start working on, but we're in summer. Anyway, so I'm working on my Afghan. And I was going to say, maybe by next week I'll work on the weaving, and the answer is no, I won't. I already know that's not going to be the answer. All right, so that is the update on the crocheting front of things. I did get, in that order, I did get a couple of other colors of yarn that were also on sale. I have some concepts of how they're going to get used, not fully firmed up, but I got them while they were on sale. And that's why those specific ones came home, because they're on sale. So I keep looking, and it was really interesting. It's not like they had all of the full line of Patton's Canadian yarn on sale. They only had certain colors on sale. Now, fortunately, white was one of them, and it was on a really good discount. I think that the 35% off was a decent discount. But I keep going back, going like, I wonder if in 3 or 4 weeks, if they'll change it up and it'll be other versions of that. I also noticed that they also had some colors that I can't find listed anywhere else, and some of them are blues. So I'm having the debate about, do I just order some so I can see them? I did. I was me. I was ridiculous. I have all of the colors, all of the blues that are available according to the manufacturer. I have all of the blues that are available at Michael's, and then I went to this online place, and they had those blues as well. So I know it's not just one of those instances where they're calling it something different. They have more blues than the other sites have. So I'm really struggling with going back and going like, just buy some of those other colors. So we'll see. I was going to say, the other thing that I've been spending some time on crocheting this week is because I am planning on doing a temperature blanket next year, because it's Cheryl's fault. And I'm really struggling with what my colors are going to be. Now, again, if you haven't been here before and you don't know about this, there's an amazing website called temperature-blanket.com. It's amazing. I love it more than I should. I love it. And yeah, so you go to that website, you put in your location. Clearly it's historical, but it will give you the gist of your specific region, and you get to pick your colorway to see what it would look like, to see if you would like what the resulting blanket would look like, and whether or not you're doing it in rows or in squares or in diagonals, or they've got a number of options for you to do. So I've been back on the temperature blanket website looking at options, trying to decide what I'm going to do. Have not decided. And the risk is now I need to catch up with Cheryl, because I need to check see how many balls of yarn she's used for her temperature blanket. So I need to catch up with her on that. I hope she's keeping track. I forgot to talk about that the last time we were stitching. I hope she's keeping track so I can do a guesstimate as to how much yarn I'm going to need once I decide on my colorway. I know. It's changed again this week, but what my options are. Anyway, all right, let's wrap it up. Yeah, so that's all I have for you this week. Thanks for coming by and catching up. And if you enjoyed what you see, feel free to like and subscribe. If you've got any comments or questions for me or topics you would like me to talk about, feel free to drop those down in the comment section down below, because I always love having the conversation. With that, just a reminder, happy Canada Day to all my Canadian viewers. Happy 4th of July to all of my American viewers. I hope everybody's staying safe wherever you are. So I was watching something, we were coming up to the, because Canada Day and July 4th are so close together, and they were talking about boating safety. I enjoy a good safety discussion. So I hope everybody stayed safe through their celebrations, because safety is important. Safety first, safety first, safety first. So I hope everybody's staying safe. I hope everybody is staying healthy. I hope you're all finding some time to do some stitching, even though it's harder to do in summer, or at least it's harder for some of us to do in summer, because we're spending time outside, which is good. That's also positive. But I hope you're finding some time to do some stitching, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.